Um, So we already know how to represent knowledge, how to reason, and how to make inferences. Now we are just putting them into a capsule kind of scenario where we are trying to put them into a production system or a frame-based system or as an ontology. Um, so last class we saw production systems. It has got a rule base and a working memory. So the rule base basically is your knowledge base consisting of rules of this particular form, which is a clausal form, and a working memory, which is consisting of if-then rules, which is typically used for deriving your inferences. So you have a working memory. The syntax and semantic representation of the facts may differ across different systems depending upon what domain are you targeting basically. So you will be able to add to the fact to the working memory, remove the fact, and modify an attribute field or query the user for the input. So this is what you normally do, and the rules are typically encoded in first order logic or propositional logic. Now this is object-oriented representation, where this is one more way, and this is the basis for frame systems as well as the semantic network or concept graph, conceptual network, ontology. So this is the basis for all your other kinds of representation. Now you know how to write rules, how to give input. Now how to give this input to the machine is what we are trying to look for. Now remember that knowledge representation deals with knowledge representation is what we talk about giving input to the machine, giving input to the algorithm. So we know how to represent, how to encode this knowledge. So from the human vocabulary, you know how to convert this into a knowledge base or a knowledge content, and this knowledge should be represented properly in order to give input to the algorithm. Now that is what we are aiming at, and production systems has one form of knowledge representation, which is exactly what we have been talking about. The other one is the object-oriented representation. That is what you'll be talking about now. Then we have frame-based systems. Then we have ontology. That's what we're going to stop at. Otherwise it's going to be going indefinitely. Okay. In object-oriented representations, it is similar to how you have been doing OOP program, where every um, um, knowledge or rule is typically looked upon as an object. And you also have these properties of inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation. All these could be derived from that. Okay. So it is typically how you organize physical objects. A desk has a surface material, number of drawers, width, length, etc. Some variations of desk can basically be no drawers, etc. And you can say multi-level surface, etc. And situations can basically be, where is this desk going to be placed? It could be a class, a room. Okay. So participants, teacher, date, time, seating arrangement, etc. So this is going to be the objects that is going to be interacting with this desk. Okay. Then the leg of a trip is destination, origin, conveyance, procedures for buying ticket, getting through customs. So how does you basically traverse this object into the other location? So that is called as the situation. So situations will basically have what are the environment you are talking about. Okay. And the importance here is the objects will enable grouping of the procedures for determining the properties of the objects, their parts, and interaction with the parts. So this is what we are talking about as procedures. Now similar to how you have in OOP, you have a class name and you have a derived class, you have an inherited class. you have a friend function, etc. And then you have methods in order to operate on the class members, etc. Similarly, I can think of this also as a representation involving all these objects, but the representation cannot be in object-oriented programming language. It has to basically, it can resemble OOP language, but you can have a different language, a convenient language for representation. Okay. So if you go in for this representation, you have to go in. It will be easier for you to put it in OOP representation. So basically, Java was pretty much used for representing knowledge to the AI algorithms because it was trying to use this object-oriented representation. Now, the frame-based systems, this is actually a predecessor of our object-oriented system. So this was invented, and from this only basically you kind of got object-oriented representation. So here you have everything is looked upon as a frame, and these frames can be either individual frames or it could be generic frames. So individual frames will be, it represents a single object like a person, part of a trip, etc. And generic frames represents a categories of objects like student, etc. So for animal will probably be a generic frame. An individual frame will basically be your cow, or say, even you can be very specific, a cow or a bull or an ox or whatever. Okay, you can be as specific as possible. So the example given here is a generic frame can be European city, and an individual frame can basically be the cities itself, like Paris or London or Buenos Aires or whatever. So here in frames, an individual frame is a named list of buckets called slots. So you have slots available in each. You can think of this as a frame having some slots. Okay. What goes into this bucket is called as a filler of the slot. So for example, you can say, giving a frame name, you can say slot name 1, filler 1. So in slot 1, you can use some data. In slot 2, you can get another data, etc. So this is how you basically create an individual frame. So individual frames also have a special slot called as instance of. Now this is going to be the specific object type. Okay. So this is instance of whose filler is the name of the generic frame. So individual frames can be derived from generic frames. That is what is your understanding. So you have this link here, which will be having an instance of slot, which will be indicating what it is trying to be derived from. So for example, Toronto is a city in Canada. So you know that, and instance of Canadian city. So Canadian city can basically be a generic frame. Okay. So you can have a province slot where it can call it as Ontario, and the population slot called as 4.5 million, etc. etc. Similarly, in a generic frame, it can have a ISA slot. Okay. So generic frame is a type of, that is what it basically extends to, is a type of. Okay. So this is a generic frame, is a type of what individual frame are you talking about. Okay. So this is a generic frame, is a city, and province is Canadian province, etc. You can also say what it can basically inherit. Okay. So what other frames can basically be inherited, and supposing this a generic frame, this can also be a individual frame also, generic frames. In that case, you don't call it as an, I mean, my point is, you have a main class here, there could be another derived class and another derived class here. Okay. So this will derive some properties of this and some properties of, I mean, this will derive all properties of this, and this will derive properties of this. So from here you try to do one. So that is also a possibility for establishing node, and this is the fundamental behind this conceptual graph which is being constructed. Okay. So you have generic frames, and slots in the generic frames, you can have associated procedures that are executed and control the inferencing procedure. So two types of procedures are there here. First one is called as if needed, other one is called as the if added. So if needed procedure basically executes when no slot filler is given and the value is required. Okay, so you do not have the value of the slot, but it is required. In that case, you call this procedure. If added, if a slot filler is given, its effect may propagate to other frames. So in that case, it will be called. So it can, supposing you have derived many classes, so many individual frames from the generic frame. In that case, you can call this particular slot. So for example, the filler for day of the week will be calculated when the date is basically filled. Okay, so this is some procedures, and the reasoning in frames is also possible. Okay, again, the purpose behind this representation is to do some reasoning. So supposing a user instantiates a frame, so declares that an object or a situation basically exists, and then slot fillers are inherited where possible, and inherited if added procedures are run, causing more frames to be instantiated and slots to be filled. Supposing if the user or any procedure requires a filler of a slot, then if there is a filler, it is used. Otherwise, you call the if needed procedure to cause the other values to be created. So you have a global reasoning where it makes frames to be major situations or objects, and you need to flesh out the reasoning. And you can also express constraints between slots as if needed and if needed procedures, if added procedures. And if it is not known, you can fill the default values. So this is the reasoning with frames. So you again make use of these procedures only to do it. But again, this was a old system, but it has been evolved so much. But this is the pioneer for object-oriented representations. And then later we have this ontology and semantic network, and the concept graphs, concept map, all those. There are different names given to this particular graphical representation. We'll see one or two names today, and there are other names also I'll mention. So this is the pioneer, but this is not now very much useful. It has been modified to the graphical representations. So ontology is one such graph. Okay. Basically, to give you okay, let me finish this and come back. So what is called as, this is an ontology. It is you have, similar to how knowledge base is created using knowledge engineering, ontology is created using ontology engineering. Okay, that is all the jargons which is popular. Knowledge is represented using a graph, and each node of the graph is a concept, and the edge between the two nodes represents the relation between the concepts. Now, the nodes can also be entities. Okay, and the edge could be again the relationship between the entities. Okay, you already know this ER diagram, entity relationship diagram, right? So it is just kind of that only, to be very crude. So you already know ER diagram, you have been working on databases. So we have now forgotten traditional databases, and then we said, okay, ER diagram is not necessary, but ER has been adopted on a different front. But it is not called ER because it's called as concept graph. Okay. So the concept defines a group of existences. So for example, the form, okay, entity, it's crude only, as I said, but entity refers to only one particular type of object. But here we're talking about a generic class or a hierarchy of classes. So many things are possible. So therefore, it is not exactly an ER, but to give a understanding of what this ontology is, it is nothing but a concept relationship diagram or an entity relationship diagram, in a relationship graph. Okay, so the form, properties, states, etc. of these concepts are memorized in the corresponding node, are available in the corresponding node. So now that is not available in your ER. Anyway, you have attributes, but again, you can debate for and against. So the relationship between the concepts includes causal relation, inclusion relation, and membership relation, etc. So this is what you have to do. Your relationship you can define to a greater extent, and you can create your own relationship. There are some standard relations available for an ontology. For example, is, has, okay, kind of, part of, subset of, okay, superset of, etc., etc. But you can also create your own relationship. So using an ontology graph, you can represent knowledge in a well organized way and people can understand. So again, this is done by people who have created this topic. So they have to defend that particular topic. So what happens is, this is the underlying situation. You do not care what is the origin of the universe, but care about the true meanings of the concepts. So you start with the domain and then start looking at the concepts available in the domain. So in the true meanings, you define the knowledge that can be shared and understood by everybody. So for this, we are trying to represent knowledge graphically and open it to the world. This is called as a knowledge graph or an ontology graph or a concept graph or whatever, what not. So hopefully after many years, some of the knowledge can be universally helpful. Again, this is a question. We do not know whether it is answered yet. So semantic network is one type of an ontology graph. Okay, I'll give you one more graph later. In semantic network, the knowledge is represents a directed graph here. So each node has a concept name, attributes and the attribute values, and the edge defines the relationship between two concepts. So to give an example like this, now this has been now modified to what is called as a mind map, which is a special type of graph that is the relationships are typically consist of pretty much only these two relationships are handled in a mind map. So here mammal has vertebrates. Okay, a dog is a mammal, dog has body hair, tiger has body hair, tiger is a mammal, dolphin is a mammal, dolphin lives in water, shark lives in water, shark is an animal, mammal is also an animal. Okay, so animal belongs to, or animal consists of mammal. You can define your own relationship. Okay, so like that you can try to define. This is some people call this as taxonomy. Taxonomy defines a hierarchy. Now there is no hierarchy here. That is why we call it as it is not a taxonomy per se. Similarly, mind map also people call it as sometimes as a hierarchy, but it is not. There is no hierarchy, so it is called as a mind map. So mind map is how that is also a graphical representation consisting of nodes and edges. It is the way your human mind tries to construct images, tries to construct objects and establishes relationship among the objects. Okay, and establishes relationship among the objects by looking at only one particular thing. How does it do things in parallel? Okay, so that representation is called as the mind map. Okay, pretty much the edges will have these two relationships in mind map. So for example, if you consider a concept called as cheetah is a node. It has the following attributes and corresponding values. So A1 is food, value is meat, A2 is speed, value is fast, A3 is character, value is fearful. So these are the attributes and their values. You can even have fuzzy values for the concepts. So one more ontology for this animal kingdom. So mammal has body hair or drink milk. Mammal is an animal, carnivore is an animal, lion is a carnivore, fox is a carnivore. Okay, so so has sharp teeth and so these are your attributes and their values. Okay, so has brown body color and has a medium-sized body. So this is how the ontology looks like. So how do I reason in a semantic network? Again, the purpose behind this knowledge representation is it should use one of these reasoning mechanisms and inferencing rules that we have already learned in order to reason from this particular representation. So supposing you have the following questions: does lion has a big body? Is fox an ungulate? Does deer ruminate? Is swallow black? Does zebra has an odd number of toes? What is the type of an animal who has black strings? And so these are typical questions which we have looked at in the earlier scenario also. So you can try to use ontology as a knowledge base to answer questions and then confirm your decisions. So here reasoning is typically similar to graph matching. Okay. So, and a question network is also generated for each question. So it is not viewed upon as the question itself. Now, how did we convert the question in first order logic? We converted into a first order logic rule itself, right? We converted the sentence into a syntax, into a sentence obeying the syntax and semantics of first order logic. Similarly here, this will be converted into a ontology, which is a graph. Again, it will be converted into a graph representation. And then you will try to do a matching of the graph. Again, it will have a node, which is the concept, and the edge can be a relation. Okay. So from that you can your question network is generated, and then you get an answer from the question network matches to a subgraph of the semantic network. Okay. So because you may not match the complete graph, you match only the small subset, and so that subgraph contents will be retrieved as answer and will be presented to the user. So here are some more topics on that. To just give an outlook, I have personally worked in two types of ontology. Ontology in two instances. One is I was generating lyrics, Tamil lyrics, that is poetry, from prose. So you give a situation, I don't know whether I have told this or not. I think I spoke about the story generation, right? That story generation had a concept graph. Okay. So where the concepts were the nodes, they were actually entities, and the graph and the edges were basically the relationship between the different entities. So now, and it also had a probability value. The probability of it was actually a probabilistic concept graph. Okay, so the relationship will be there along with the probability that this is the relationship with probability of so much. Okay, so similarly, I had a lyric generation scenario where we constructed an ontology because I don't know how many of you have are interested in movies. Anybody not interested in movies? Anybody not interested in movies, yeah? Or everybody is interested in movies? Not interested. Very nice. I see one hand up. Aryan, yes. Okay. You are not interested in movies. Okay. What about others, yeah? Okay, so the reason why I asked you this question is normally people have to write Sabari Srinivas. You're also not interested.
Interested.
Interested. Okay. What about Aryan? Yeah, I asked not interested, so he said interested. I don't know. So people actually will be given a situation of from the movie, and then they have to write lyrics for that. So I started with that particular project, and finally what happened was we created an ontology for that. So the lyrics should reflect the contents of the story. It should reflect, I said, it should not be the exact replica of the words available in the story. So we created an ontology for that particular domain, okay, and we established a relationship from the for the corpus. A source ontology was constructed, and so from this there was a subgraph match. We pretty much did a um, uh, click. Okay, a click is a complete subgraph of a given graph, right? So we pretty much did a click, and from the click we kind of extracted those nodes and then tried to generate poetry by obeying the grammar rules of the language. So we did it in Tamil. So we had poetry created with only the scenario. That was version 1. Version 2 was we had music. For the music will be given as a automata, okay, as a sequence of in Sarigama Padanisa. So it will be given as an automata, and we matched that, and then we created the lyrics. And version 3 we had location, because we spoke with one film director, and then we got him. He said that's how he does it. So we thought, okay, let us try doing that. So we looking at the scene also, scenario, scene where this song will be shot. Okay, so that was the version 3, incorporating all the 3 together. And the last version was the author attributes. So if you say you have to write poetry for this situation, similar to how Bharatiyar would have written, so it will try to mock Bharatiyar, okay, and then try to create lyrics. Of course, it was really tough to mock Bharatiyar, so we tried to we kept him safe, and then uh, we dealt with the typical movie. I lost power in my laptop, so it's restarting. Let me. I've been talking only, so let me say. So that was version 4, where we had um, author attribute as well as dialect of the person involved in the particular scenario of the movie. So that was also used as a basis for generating lyrics. So we conducted Turing test. I don't know. I think you know what is Turing test, right? So we conducted Turing test, and we got around 80% to 90% accuracy for one domain. I mean, we had a one domain with 5 emotions. Okay, so for that we got that was the accuracy that basically we kind of got. Now this is ontology. So this I have worked in this ontology on that particular graph completely, and the concept graph I think I already told you. We did this story generation from hints. So that was a concept graph based. So which is almost, that's why I said it's a graph, and people have been giving so many names on that. And one more graph which I have worked on is called as Universal Networking Language, UNL, okay, which is used for typically translation. okay, which is typically used for translation. I'm back in this. Okay, which is typically used for translation, and that graph there was a team which has created that representation. So it is actually an intermediary representation based machine translation system. So we have done that also. So I have worked in 3 types of graphical representation. So now let's get back and finish this topic before we wind up. So from next class, I will be discussing machine learning. So in all these scenarios, so UNL, you can take a look if you want, if you're interested in translation. This is a wonderful approach. It has got around 46 relations and 700 rules, 700 to 900 rules, if I remember right, for creating those graph. Okay. So, so the ontology, typically it is the structure of the world. This is as ontology as a graph is based upon O representation. So it is typically trying to map it. So it's often about structure of concepts here. So here it reflects the structure of the data and the code, and it is usually about behavior, that is the methods. Okay. The formal ontological classes are sets which can be defined in terms of other classes, attributes, and associations. So here you can use templates for doing the same. And here, property is a general term for attributes and associations. Attributes and associations have different meanings here because it depends upon how you construct the class and their methods. So this has an open world assumption and this has a closed world assumptions. So here, pizza has base and pizza base. So this is going to be open versus closed logic. So an open logic gives a different answer to queries than a closed logic. Suppose that Americana is the only pizza, then the closed world says it violates constraint. So Americana pizza exists, but its base is not known. So that is why we are talking about as open versus closed world. Italian pizza has bases, crisp base and hard base. So it violates constraint. Crisp base and hard base are actually same. So what happens is this OWL, which is called as the ontology web language or web language for ontology. Ontology web language. It's in Java actually. You can create an ontology with this particular framework. Has got a set of axioms. It has got class axioms, role axioms, and individual axioms. So this is the example typically. So fish is a subclass of animal, and this animal basically can swim. So this is the representation for that particular scenario. So fish is a type of the attribute here has vertebra. This is the relation. Animal, fish can swim. Animal, fish is a animal that can swim. Basically, you can read it in the manner that you basically is helpful for you to understand. Fish is an animal that can basically swim. Jellyfish doesn't have vertebra, and pomfret is a subset of fish. Moon jelly is a type of jellyfish. Okay. So this is the OWL framework in Protige. So you can create this this coding is, I don't know how many of you have used Protige. Anybody has used? Anybody has used Protige? I cannot see if your hands are up. Okay, you can consider exploring Protige and OWL. for purpose. So ontology engineering process is an iterative process. So you can determine scope, consider reuse, enumerate terms, consider reuse, define classes, enumerate terms, and define classes. And then for properties, you define classes, define properties, define constraints, create instances, define classes, and create instances. So this is one pipeline. Then consider reuse. So you have to do this iteratively and then try to create your ontology defined. So Proteage is an ontological engineering tool. It's a graphical ontology development tool. It supports rich knowledge model. Okay, it's open source. You can try to download that. So these tools I have not used. I have seen OntoEdit. Okay, the others I have not used at all. So I have just used only Proteage and using OWL. So you can determine the domain and scope. So this is very important. So it is not a generic ontology. It has to basically cater to a particular domain that you are targeting. So you should know what you are going to use the ontology for. What type of questions basically the ontology should provide answers. So those things should be reflected in order to construct the ontology. So as I said, for the hints development story, hints development based story generation, we had the domain fixed as Aesop tales. Okay, so that was the domain. It will not go outside the domain. It is not going to give me any thriller or any fiction or any suspense story. No, it is going to be only this advisory kind of Aesop tales. Okay. So again, you should have these. You should have a set of competency questions for determining the scope, basically. So, which pizza characteristics should I consider when I'm choosing a pizza? Is it veg or non-veg? Does pizza go well with ice cream? Which is the best choice? If you have answers to all these questions, your ontology construction basically becomes easier. Okay. You have to consider reuse to save other ontologies. Develop a generic domain as much as possible and then try to reuse the template of the domain in order to support other aspects. Okay. So there are general ontologies and domain specific ontologies. DMOS and UMLS are examples of the same. So WordNet is a general ontology. You can look at WordNet, which is going to give you the collection of words along with their all forms. Okay, the syntax, their usage, their parts of speech, their suffixes basically that they can take, etc. So this is a classic tool for translation, especially. Okay, if you want to do translation from English to Tamil or English to any language or to English, you have to necessarily go in for using a WordNet, which is very helpful. So you can also have to enumerate the important terms here, where what are the terms that we talk about, what are the properties of these, basically the concepts. Okay, what are the properties of these concepts and what do we want to say about the terms. So for example, enumerating the terms, that pizza ontology, pizza, cheese, toppings, Mexican sauce, etc. Similarly, a class, define classes. A class is a concept in the domain. So you have a class of pizza base, a class of country, etc. Again, a class is a collection of elements with identical properties. So instances of classes will basically be the specific type of information. You can also have class inheritance. Now this is why I said all these graphs depend upon the object-oriented representation for their understanding. Okay, which in turn was dependent upon frame classes. Frames. Okay. So a class hierarchy is typically a hierarchy. So an instance of a subclass is an instance of a superclass. So this is obvious. Okay. So I think this is just some theory. I'll leave it to you. So you should avoid cycle. Very important. Your graph should basically be acyclic here. So classes A, B, and C have equivalent set of instances. A and B and C are thus equivalent. So that is what you basically can come to conclusion. I leave this thing with you. So we will stop here. So unit 3 is done. I'll share some exercises for you to work on first order logic and reasoning using resolution, refutation using resolution, and 5 minutes. And then we'll start unit 4 next Monday with the machine learning concepts. Okay, so you essentially have 6 more weeks with many holidays and 1 more CT slot. I'm ignoring this week actually. You essentially have 6 more weeks. So we should try to finish machine learning by then. Okay. Start working on the project, start preparing it. Don't wait for my sharing of the assignment link. You can submit it immediately after you are done. Okay. So thank you, and we'll see next Monday.
Thank you.